confess the deity of the Messiah in the Tenach. Today we're going to look at Lesson 2, the claims of Jesus. How do they measure up with what's popularly taught or believed within Jewish circles? What we have learned so far: there is a Jewish belief about the Messiah. In fact, the coming of the Messiah and the thought of it is foundational in Judaism. Messiah means anointed one. The core belief, the core Jewish belief about the Messiah is that he would be just a man. Above all, according to Jewish belief, popular Jewish thought and teaching, above all, the Messiah would not be God or any kind of supernatural being, but he would be just a man. We also saw in John chapter 8 and John chapter 10, Jesus claimed to speak God's words and that he was one with God. What we will learn in this lesson is that Jesus indeed claimed to be the Messiah, and he also claimed to be God, for sure. So how do these measure up? How can we approach a Jewish person with the teaching that the Messiah is God? That's what this class is all about. Once again, I'd like to quote for you from Rabbi Shmuley, as I quoted in the last lesson. He teaches that over the centuries, he, speaking of Jesus, over the centuries, he was slowly turned into a deity. But what did Jesus claim? Those within Judaism who want to believe that Jesus was a good man attempt to say that Jesus never claimed to be divine. We have already viewed a few passages that refute this. We will look at more in this lesson. Once again, Jesus' claim and popular Jewish thought. Jesus claimed to be the Messiah. He told the Samaritan woman that he is the Messiah in John chapter 4. Verses 25 and 26 say, "The woman saith unto him," the Samaritan woman, "I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things." Jesus saith unto her, "I that speak unto thee am he." Right here, black and white, pure and simple, Jesus claimed to be the Messiah prophesied in the Hebrew Scriptures. He told the Samaritan woman that he is the Messiah. He also affirmed Peter's statement that he is the Messiah and the Son of God. Matthew 16 says, "He saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am?" This is Jesus' famous question to his disciples. And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." You are the Messiah, the Son of the God of Israel. And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven." Jesus absolutely claimed to be the Messiah. He claimed to be the Son of God. Jesus also told the high priest that he is the Messiah and the Son of God. Look at this passage, Mark chapter 14, verses 61 through 64. Again, the high priest asked him and said unto him, "Art thou the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? Are you the Messiah?" And Jesus said, "I am. And ye shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven." This is a quotation from Daniel, where the Son of Man comes to the Ancient of Days, and the Ancient of Days gives the Son of Man power and judgment. Then the high priest rent his clothes and saith, What need we any further witnesses? Ye have already heard this blasphemy. What think ye? And they all condemned him to be guilty of death. Did Jesus claim to be the Messiah? Did Jesus claim to be the Son of God? Absolutely. He claimed to be the Messiah. He claimed to be the Son of God. He claimed to be God in human flesh. Jesus claimed to be God. Jesus told the Jews in John chapter 10, and we looked at this passage in our last lesson, I and my Father are one. John chapter 10. Jesus told the disciples in John 13, Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. Jesus taught these things. Jesus preached these things. Jesus proclaimed these things. To say that over the centuries he was slowly turned into a deity is to deny the core of what Jesus taught about himself. Jesus forgave sins, which only God had the authority to do. Luke chapter 5. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, Man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone? And this we read in the other Gospels, that they reasoned within their hearts and minds. It wasn't even an audible statement. Who can do this but God himself? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering said unto them, What reason ye in your hearts? Whether is easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Rise up and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power upon earth to forgive sins, he says unto the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, Arise, and take up thy couch, and go into thy house. And immediately he rose up before them, and took that whereon he lay, and departed into his own house, glorifying God. And they were all amazed. And they glorified God, and were filled with fear, saying, We have seen strange things today. Jesus not only healed the sick, but he forgave sins, which only God has the authority to do. How could he do that? Why could he do that? Because he is God. He claimed to be God. He claimed to be the Messiah. Again, reviewing these items about the claims of Jesus. Jesus said that he had seen Abraham and that he is eternal. He said in John chapter 8, Before Abraham was, I am. The Jewish people that he spoke to knew what he was speaking. They knew what he was saying. John chapter 8, verse 51. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if a man keep my saying, he shall never see death. Then said the Jews unto him, Now we know that thou hast a devil. Abraham is dead, and the prophets. And thou sayest, If a man keep my saying, he shall never taste of death. Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead? And the prophets are dead. Who makest thou thyself? Listen to how Jesus responds. If I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet ye have not known him, but I know him. And if I should say I know him not, I shall be a liar like unto you. But I know him, and keep his saying. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it, and was glad. How is this possible if the Messiah is just a man? How is this possible if, like Rabbi Shmuley teaches, Jesus never claimed to be God? Then said the Jews unto him, Thou art not yet 50 years old, and hast thou seen Abraham? Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. Then took up they stones to cast at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. Once again, the Jewish people of the first century, the scribes and the Pharisees, they knew what Jesus was claiming. They knew what Jesus was teaching. And we can see in their reaction to what Jesus says. Once again, Jesus claimed to be the Messiah. He also claimed to be God. Jesus said that he had seen God in John chapter 6, which no one else can do. He told Philip that seeing him is seeing the Father in John chapter 14. Look at verse number 6. Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. This is a familiar passage, but listen to where it goes. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. Now, think about this for a second. Who did Jesus teach was his father? He's not talking about Joseph. Joseph wasn't his father. His father is God. His father is the God of Israel. His father is the God that the Jewish people had known throughout the centuries. His father is the God of Moses. He says, if you had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him and have seen him. Interesting. Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Just show us the Father, it'll be enough. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. How much clearer of a statement do you need? Jesus claimed that he and the Father were one. He said as much as if you have seen me, you've seen the Father. This is how much and to what extent Jesus and his Father are one. If you've seen me, Philip, you've seen the Father. Wow. This is something that flies in the face of popular Jewish thought, but guess what? It is very, very, very much in line with what the Hebrew Scriptures teach about the Messiah. The majority of Jewish people do not believe that the Messiah would be God. But what does the Tenach say? Interesting. In dealing with a Jewish person, in trying to share with them the truth that the Messiah had to be God, we will look into the Hebrew Scriptures. We will look into the Tenach. We will look into what we refer to in Christianity as the Old Testament. In these passages, in these verses that we are going to look at in the next lesson, we will find that their own Scriptures teach that the Messiah had to be God. And in our discussions with Jewish people, oftentimes they will refuse to even look into what the New Testament says. But most of them will accept what we call Genesis to Malachi. For them it's the same 39 books, but just in a different order, Genesis to 2nd Chronicles. But in that, in our Old Testament, what they call the Tenach, we will find the teaching that the Messiah has to be God. And these verses that we are going to look at in the next lesson are very, very important. They're of the utmost importance in being able to effectively share with a Jewish person the teachings of the Messiah. To be able to share with them the gospel, they have to understand who the Messiah is. Not only who Jesus claimed to be, but what their own Scriptures teach about who the Messiah would be before he ever came. And so this is what we're going to look at in our next lesson. Thank you so much for joining us. Shalom.